What's good, family? It's your boy Fusion. Check 1 2. If you're in the building, sign in, say your name, let us know where you're calling in from. As I said, my name is Fusion. I'm the host of this show. It's called Black Love Stories. This is our love letter to the planet. Black men speaking our truths, telling the world what we feel, what we care about, and what matters. And you can hear me. Okay, yes. Right, you can see I'm smiling because my energy is always lit. But I just feel better when you can actually hear the words I'm saying. So this show is 1 hour, 1 hour conversation, debate, discussion, just moving moments as well. I always guarantee that we get in our feels, speak truth, and connect. And today's story is all about fight or flight. And I'm not going to lie to you, like, pressure levels were strong. I was in central London whizzing back here and I'm like, the show never starts late. But you know what? You got to be easy with the pressure because Instagram's a crazy one. As long as you're here, no one's ever going to remember when the show started. I try and start on time, but there's legit reasons. BMT is growing. We're connecting with more partners, big announcements to come. But I'm glad you've come here today. We've been sharing our Black love stories and a great conversation with two giants. I love that. 2 guests in one show, man. We're just leveling up. So, fight or flight, mind, body, and soul. Our first guest I'm going to talk about, he is one of our emerging greats, a genuine diamond. He goes by the name of Josh Goodin. Boxing, undefeated thus far, turned pro, and is just not just a shining light in the ring, but also a leader when he's talking about what he does and how he expresses himself and his mindset. So we're going to really enjoy a conversation about his journey and his aspirations. And speaking of journeys, we've all have a history. We've all gone through something. Some of us, no, all of us have had some kind of setback, trauma, difficulty. Now, just speaking as a member of the Black community, I know we put it on our backs a lot of the time. We have the scars, we don't open up, especially some of us men. So this conversation is going to get deep because we have a man who's qualified to have that conversation about mindfulness. His name is Stephen Ismail Thomas. And he's going to be talking about his movement to get people to just be more mindful. He's got a project called the Mind Bubbles Project, which I think is a dope name. And he's going to be talking a bit more about that work. Shouts out to all my troopers, the ones who ride with me even when the mic doesn't work. So shouts out to Sesprana. We've also got Miss Lee Wrights, regular family, Hollyhead, regular family, Anthony Dunn, soon to be regular family. I'm gonna wave at you, King. Don't know. Souls of Rain, foreign, regular family, real life events coaching. Get involved in the chat. If you have something to say, it's an open square for the family. Big Scoop, regular family. All of you, welcome, welcome, welcome. Special shouts out to my homie, Haircuts and Uppercuts. Just learn about his platform. And the message is really simple. During lockdown, you can liberate your creativity and your mind. He started to become a boxing journalist and he has my guest who was on the show. So you can check him out on YouTube. Great interview about vulnerability and mindfulness as well. People doing great work. So shout out to all of you. No news today. We're going to get straight into the conversation. So I'm going to invite my very first guest in the square. I'm going to see if he is ready to join us. As I mentioned, you know, people look at boxing as a physical sport, but it's a science and a lot of it's psychological. He hails from Luton sides, went to university in Nottingham. He knows his sports science and he's just taken all of his gifts and skills and finessed that into a career that is genuinely shining. So he's working in gyms, but he's also working out to be in that premier shape. He's 28 right now and he's gunning for titles. Trust me. So yeah, I'm going to reach out. He's requesting to join the square or to just have some questions and get involved in the conversation. Big love. It's Fusion, it's BMT, and it's Black Love Stories. Yes,
that was some introduction. I've got to live up to a lot of expectation here.
My friend, every time you step into the ring, you live up to those expectations. You know, I'm hearing the commentators watching you in your early fights, and they're just seeing that transition from amateur to professional, to you just appearing off the screen. We're going to get you back again. It started so good. Come in. I don't even get faced by gremlins anymore, you know. We're built for this. This is what greatness is about, you know. All we do is keep going, take the L's.
Sorry, lost you there, Fusion brother.
It's all right, King.
But I did hear some of that, and again, like I said before, it cut out. Yeah, but I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, but surely I'm gonna try and Yeah, I mean, and like true, like black men talking, we was late. We was late to get started. So what better way to epitomize the show?
You know what? I was laughing to my friend. Ever since I called it BMT, the
Yeah,
youngest call that big man things.
big man
But the
thing.
oldest remember,
Yeah,
black man timings. Your show could start at 7, it could start at 8:30, but we try our best. It's
exactly. Try
always
the
a
best.
legitimate reason. It's
That's right.
crazy.
That's right. Well, but honestly, it's an honor to have me on the show. Um, yeah, like you said, hailing out of Luton, now reside in Nottingham, where I started my boxing career, and yeah, but I represent the island of my mother and grandfather's birth, St Vincent and the Grenadines, and it was humbling recently to get acknowledgement from the island. It's only a small island, about 200,000 people. So any success is really hailed on the island and really celebrated. So I'm honoured to represent my family and my heritage, where I'm extremely proud of. And I'm going back next year to see Mumsy for. Well, we've got open tickets, so I don't even know if I'll come back.
My guy, listen,
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason. I'm going to shout out Chris APL, who's like one of my co-curators on the platform.
Okay.
And we celebrate all Independence Days. It's a real statement of islands and countries coming into their own. And I, as a fellow Vincentian,
Yep.
often feel like I'm the island that's still waiting to get that shine. And
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
collated some of the people from the island, yourself, Jamal Edwards, I was like,
Oh,
we're about,
massive.
you know.
Massive. Yeah. There's I want to shout out to my guy Josh Bruce. Like he's also from the island. He's a garage artist, like from Nottingham. Like he's doing massive things, but because the garage scene isn't always like exacerbated everywhere else, like he's not as heralded. But yeah, he's doing massive. Honestly, like this guy's famous. Like he can't walk around Nottingham. Like he's famous, and like he's got the island tatted on his hand. So yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of talent out there from the island, and yeah, it is a very much an unheralded island, but in many ways, I kind of like that. I kind of like that because we almost sneak up on people. I like it when people ask the question. Is that Jamaica you're from? No, it's from St Vincent and the Grenadines. And then when you go to that island, you're gonna realize what the Caribbean is really about. A beautiful island. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of beautiful islands in the Caribbean. A lot of beautiful islands. But I may be a bit biased, but St Vincent and Beckway, where my mum was born and she was raised in St Vincent. To me, there's no more beautiful islands than them.
Well, my brother, we're putting it on the map today. We're going to have some big
100%.
conversations about heritage
100%.
and about your work as well. But let's begin with Mumsy. Let's begin with the island. So I believe she came here at the age of 19.
Yeah. She came here very young. So I mean, it's quite an inspirational story. And when I talk about no pressure, no diamonds, and the reason why that sort of slogan came about was one, yes, representing the Vincentian flag, the 3 diamonds on the flags or the gems. But a lot of people that came from the island came from extreme extenuating circumstances, especially those that are there now and having to overcome the horrors of the volcano eruption, the Le Soufrière, in April this year, and especially during like the migration and the Windrush era, where my grandfather came over and my mother somewhat years later preceding that, and had to deal with extreme amount of pressure in order to overcome all types of adversity in order to create what I consider extremely grateful lifestyle. And Dave said it best in his latest album. Like, I had it far from perfect, but nobody did. So I guess I'm just a normal person. And like, I mean, I thought I had it hard growing up, but when I really think about it, I had a roof over my head, clothes on my back, and food in my belly. So in many sense, I was a normal person. But bringing it back to mum, like mum my grandmother after she had my mother had to migrate to England. So did my grandfather, and my mother was raised by her aunties in her auntie and uncle in Belmont, St Vincent. So not knowing her parents in her early years, or not having that early relationship with her parents.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
common within like that
yeah,
generation,
exactly.
Windrush time. Yeah,
Exactly. And then she had to come over to England. She met her parents and build that relationship with her parents that she missed out of. I had to build from scratch. She worked in a Burberry factory, and she just worked and grafted her way up to a point where she became a manager of a car rental firm, and yeah, just built herself up to where, to many people, it's not a lot, but to where she came from, to where she got to, it for me, it was inspirational. So for me, I wouldn't be doing justice to myself or my family's legacy if I don't perpetuate that forward, because the amount of graft that she had to put in, my grandfather had to put in, my grandmother, it's wealth is inherited. So if I don't provide something even better for my kids, then I haven't done justice to those before me. And so that's why I see it. No pressure, no diamonds.
that's real, and I'm glad you made that connection, because like you said, people don't know about our island and the flag, and it's beautiful because each flag is a story. So you
Yeah.
incorporate the story in your journey as well. But I love that statement about people may not see it as a big achievement of what our forebearers have done. But we have this thing in education called distance traveled, and it's not about getting the first class degree or the biggest achievement. It's like, where did you start? How far did you get? And how hard did you work to get there? And our parents and grandparents put in phenomenal work combating racism, all kinds of hardships, difficulties, cultural differences, just to get a sense of belonging, so we can be on that level playing field. So what was your schooling like coming up in Luton? What was your experience?
I mean, like I sit in a weird sort of paradigm, because although I'm of mixed heritage, my skin complexion is a lot more whiter than it is darker. However, I was raised by solely my mother, and with a huge West Indian, Afro-Caribbean cultural influence upon me. So I had all the idiosyncrasies of a black person, but have the skin complexion of a white person, and I learned over years to embrace both of me, because I often found myself trying to fit in to either group and continuously trying to change like a chameleon, instead of just being who I am. And I'm proud of who I am. And that's what that so when you come back to my schooling, I often found myself trying to prove a lot of things to a lot of people, whether it be like to my black friends, trying to prove that I am black enough, to my white friends, that I can fit in with you too. And instead, what I realized is, no, I am who I am. I am who my mother raised me to be, and what I represent, and I'm proud, extremely proud of my heritage. Like, so when it comes to the schooling aspect, yeah, I mean, I was quite a violent kid, always polite. And that's one thing that my teachers always used to say it to my mum at parents' evening. Your son is such a polite man, such a polite young man.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to control his temper.
Where did that temper come from? Like, on reflection, at the time, it's just, we're going through the hormones, we're going through big emotions. But on reflection, do you know what the catalyst was for that explosion of energy?
It's a good question, and I think it's a number of different things. I mean, I didn't know my father growing up, so again, like for me, it was a number of different things. Constantly trying to prove my worth within the domain that I was in. My mum did everything she could to put me in the best school she possibly could. That meant that I lived on the estate in Luton, but went to a school that was 5-10 miles north of the estate. So I felt a sense of belonging anywhere, so I had to prove it. And sometimes that was through sport. I mean, I played in every sport and I tried to excel in all of those. And I probably didn't make as many friends as some may have made, because I was so ultra competitive. That can become maniacal for some people. And it didn't matter what it was. If we was having a spelling debate, I hated spelling, but if it was a spelling debate, I would try to win. And that can become stressful for a lot of people around you. So for me, that sort of the anger probably came from always continuously trying to prove myself and prove my worth within the domain that I was in, because I probably felt that lack of self-worth at that time. And that this is just on reflection. I didn't know that.
Of course, and we don't even reflect enough. And I think when we get Stephen into the conversation, it is about healing. It's about reflecting on trauma. It's about unpacking, because these are childhood conversations that are affecting our adult livelihoods and our adult experiences if we don't reflect. So this is powerful, King.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to bring up another quote from Dave again, because this song "Heartbreak," I relate a lot to it.
Oh, we're going to get there.
It did. I mean, the lyrics just was so profound to me, and I was just like, that's what triggered a lot of reflection for me, and those that can speak so eloquently like Dave, it can really help. And his words, where he said, "My teacher told me I would never be shit. I really needed dad, but I didn't see it." And I was just like, there's probably a lot of people in my position, a lot of kids, a lot of young men, a lot of young females that probably grew up with dad, that probably going through the same as me or through the same as I was. And he says, "I grew up so fucked and I didn't even deep it. I'm numb with the feeling of grieving." And I was just like, it's actually so true. Like, and I don't think of myself as and again, this might be a narcissist in me, but I don't think of myself as I grew up extremely troubled or in that sense, to where I had like mental health issues. But definitely, like, upon reflection, like the lack of presence, the sort of not knowing my identity and not accepting my identity, definitely had an impact on the way I saw the world and the way I thought the world saw me. And constantly having to try and prove myself. Now it's taking a lot of time, but just becoming comfortable with who you are and just accepting yourself, whether it's race, whether it's how you speak, whether it's your religion. It's extremely important to sort of have that inner deep reflection, and it's very quiescent, because you liberate yourself. Like, you can't expect people to liberate you have to liberate yourself.
We're dropping quotables. We're quoting Dave, but we're also going to be quoting Josh as well. He's dropping some heavy gems. Liberate yourselves, people, and surround yourselves with people who want you to unlock that door as well. I want to send a shout out to Dave, Stormzy, Koji Radical, Lil Sims, all of our artists who use the musical form not just to entertain, but to educate, inspire, uplift, and all the fathers who are present, the ones who are tuned in now. Just salute to all of you, making young lives more livable and giving young people a better opportunity. So King, I relate to your point you raised earlier about success equating to belonging. You know, that drive we have to be recognized through sport, academia, so that people can see us, when really and truly the beginning is, I deserve to be seen. I'm here and I will try. Not trying validates me being here. And that's a big lesson that we learn sometimes quite late in life.
I agree. And I mean, a lot of the things that I'm extremely grateful for the journey that I've been on. But a lot of the journey has been, again, to want to prove myself to others. And I necessarily throughout that journey, whether it be through academia or football, in my early years, I played football to a reasonably high level. And then boxing. Many of those early years were merely to prove onto others. and it wasn't, and I suffered a lot for it. I mean, I suffered with relationships, friendships, very much strained because I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it to prove a point. And when you start doing stuff from you, like, again, I'll echo the point, you really liberate yourself. It's now to a point where I'm really happy and content, and I'm not suffering with all those mental demons. Don't get me wrong, everyone does, especially when you set yourself unattainable goals, and it's really important to set unattainable goals, because my mother always used to say to me, and when I say unattainable, let me be clear on that point. Setting goals so far or so high that they scare you, because they should scare you, because if they're within your grasp, well, you're just gonna pluck it off a tree, and it's gonna be too easy. Whereas my mother always said to me, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll catch some stars on the way. And so that's what I mean by unattainable goals, like goals that not everyone can see, but only you can see it, because it's so far-fetched to everybody else that they just don't believe it's possible. And when you do set those, sometimes it is scary, and sometimes it is really, really, you put yourself in a place where, shit, I'm really far away from this goal. How do I get it? And I'm working a lot now, actually, with a mindset coach called Bert Clymer, and he works with a lot of athletes, and he's really helping me on a day-to-day basis. Got fireworks in the background. Really come together with those goals. So I feel confident now in setting goals so far-fetched, because he's now saying, yeah, set them, because they are going to scare you, but listen, this is how you break it down, step by step, brick by brick, and literally in every day we're going to set a goal. And so if the goal is to be a British champion by 2022, well, how do we get that step by step? And when you break it down into manageable bite-sized pieces, and you tick it off on a daily basis, all of a sudden, that far goal that was unattainable to you and everybody else around you, well, you're 10 steps closer to that 100-step criteria.
I'm loving that. And the family is, man, people just smashing that heart button, bro. You're just getting pure love in the chat. Real life events coaching saying lick shot. Lady Skalecki is saying yes. Poetica, yeah, big in the spoken word and rap game, saying large up mama's wisdom, man. Shouts out to mumsies out there. Urban Goddess Evolution, she's doing great work with Got Kush TV as well. She's saying absolutely. So tell us where that transition happened for you, because when we look at people like Mike Tyson, we get that story of wanting to belong and having a mentor that helped him channel that frustration and passion into a career that's been world class. So where did that moment happen for you where you were ready to transition into amateur boxing and to where you are now?
Well, for me, it was, raised by a fierce. I mean, you look at my mum now, you wouldn't put her in a category of as a fierce woman. She's humbled in her age, but she was a fierce, strong.
Pause. I love you for that. When people look at mumsy when we were big and grown, they look so sweet, but I swear down, someone could dash one slipper at you or just give you that stern little lick.
If you got the slipper, you was lucky. You got the slipper, you was lucky. There's a story, actually. One of my best mates growing up, he stayed around for a sleepover. Mum rarely allowed a sleepover, but she did one time. She come in because my friends were being loud. I was trying to quiet down my friends. I was like, look, you don't know my mum. She's going to come in and beat me up. She came in, and my friend come and watched my last fight, and we talked about it after. She came in with a basket, like one of them wooden baskets, and was licking me down with it, just because in front of all my friends, because my friends were being loud, not me. I was telling them to be quiet.
I'm done.
That's the type of licks that you get.
Bro, I didn't want to say it, but like, I'm a hip hop kid. I sample anything. Certain mums, they will take anything. They will take anything in the room. It could be slipper, belt, basket,
whatever's local.
Chopping board. It don't matter.
Whatever's
they
local.
Get creative with the licks, man. I'm swear down.
Whatever's local. But yeah, that's where it all started from, because my mum was such a stubborn woman. She wouldn't allow me to box. I always said I wanted to from an early age,
Okay.
but like I said, I was fairly good at football, and played to a very reasonable level. Um, but it was always in me to want to box. I was just an avid competitor. It, again, like I said, anything, it would be a competition, and still now to this point, I've honed it a bit, because it's necessary. But like, just wanting to compete, and there's no more ultimate competition than for me than fighting. um and it got to a point where I ended up going through academia, and I more did that again for mum. And I knew how proud she would be. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to do it, or I felt I wanted to do it, but I never really found that I was passionate about academia. I mean,
Sure.
and don't ever get it twisted. I'm not a smart individual, and I say this to everybody. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. People are born with certain skills, certain talents, but I believe honestly, with a maniacal work rate, you can get to a stage at anything. I came out of school just about with the 5A to C's GCSEs, but prior to that, 3 months before that, I sat in a room with the head teacher facing expulsion, and I was failing in everything. I got 2 A's to C's. One of them was PE and one of them was religious studies, funny enough. um other than that, I was failing at everything, and my mum was crying in the head office. And that's when I said I had to change, because I saw my mum break down in front of a head teacher, and I was like, no, that's got to change now. And that's when I really sort of picked it up and tried to develop myself mentally and academically. And it got to a point where I got through college, got to university, and then I just thought, do you know what, I'll follow the logical steps, and did that, just again through hard work. I mean, naturally, none of this came to me, and it wasn't until I ended up getting to sort of like PhD stage where I really wanted to box. My mum always said, you're never gonna box while you're under my roof. I don't want no more fighting under my roof. So I moved out. I moved up to Nottingham and found my coach, Errol McDonald. um, and he, yeah, like, from the first couple of days in the boxing gym, he just said, look, you're good at this. And I felt good at it, and I felt I was passionate about it. And one thing I'll always say to people, I didn't know that that's exactly what I wanted to do then and then. From a point was, because I invested so much time and energy into academia, I thought, well, logically, I've got to do that. However, emotionally, I wanted to box, and from that first moment, I wanted to it, but I was having that conflict. Um, but how I know I was passionate about it is when it got tough, I kept going.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll say to anybody. That's how I know I'm passionate about boxing, because after my first fight as an amateur, I won the fight, but ended up in hospital, with concussion, and I blanked out and didn't have any recollection of the aftermath of the fight, and I kept going.
Scary.
And that is why I would say, you find out in those moments, in those moments where it's a dark place. If you're passionate about something, business owners, when they're going through a downturn in a business or a downturn in economy, they find out if they really have what it takes, if they're really willing to go through the ringer. And that's what I say. If you're passionate about something, when it gets hard, you keep going. And that's
My
what.
brother, you are dropping gems. You're dropping gems. This is Black Love Stories. We're talking about fight or flight, and we don't back down. We go through, and we're talking about the dedication it takes. You know me, man. My show starts at 7, but come rain, snow, typhoon,
Right.
I'm gonna be there, and I do this. Like, we
100.
grind this out.
Exactly.
We always make sure we give you the best we can. We have one great guest. We have another guest lining up to come through. Stefan, if you're in the place, I really want you to join this conversation at this point, because I want to get deeper into mindset and talk to Josh a bit about how you prepare yourselves for fights and what it takes to make sure that you are ready to shine in that ring as well, man. So Stefan, don't be shy, my brother. Hit that button, request. And anyone else, any questions you have, I want to share the square with you. Any specific questions you want to ask about fitness, health, or Josh's career, just reach in, have a chat. So let's talk about regime. Like, how do you get yourself match ready, my bro?
Match ready. Yeah, I mean, first it start. Well, I mean, we have a plan of how we're going to approach a training camp. I mean, I'm very early in my professional career. 3 fights in, 2 of those fights were prior to COVID, and now, like we've come out of that situation, and events are starting to open up, and I can get back into the ring. We plan it out. So we plan out a minimum of a 6 to 8 week camp. And the hardest part of it is, well, actually the hardest part is actually making the weight. But the
Boom.
part,
Right.
we're in.
I just wanted to introduce my brother into the square. I'm glad this technology is working. Last week was crazy.
Yeah,
So
well,
we talked about mental health. We're talking about game changers, people who are leading in the field. It's the big conversation, but it's taken people like my guest, Stefan, who's really been in this for a while, leading the way, getting people of all ages, young people, teenagers, adults, and people who feel like they'll never get their mental health right and they're past it. No. If you're still breathing, you have an opportunity to achieve optimum health with this man here. So, my brother, welcome to the square.
Evening. I love the intro.
I mean,
Thank you.
these intros can hype you. All of a sudden, I started feeling like Mike Tyson after my intro.
Yeah,
I was ready
Yeah,
to jam off some ears.
cool.
yeah, that was. If I was coming into a ring, I would feel hyped, ready
Well, you
to
know
take
what,
on the
man?
world.
We'll
Thank
let
you.
out one theme tune and we'll bust some bars. We'll make that happen, man. But please tell us,
Yeah,
what's
welcome to
your
the
feelings
Terror
on the
Dome.
conversation so far, my brother? Because I know you've been listening and enjoying the
Yeah, I've
vibes.
been listening in. Yeah, loving the words, loving the conversation between men, and especially men of color. We don't have a voice, you know. For many years, people have been telling our stories, and it's, you know, it's nice that we're telling our stories without, you know, people interrupting and just listening. So big up everybody who's watching today, this evening. It's really important that we start to have conversations around changing the narrative. So thank you for having me.
Beautiful. You're most welcome. So I'm keenly aware, Josh, that we were talking about mindset specifically for fighting. So I want to address that, and also want to talk a bit more about how you've coped through this COVID period, because you're in your prime as a boxer, and I can imagine the level of frustration. So you're ready to go out there, but the whole world is shut down, and how you actually prevail over those difficulties.
Yeah, well, with answering your first question with regards to preparation, and if we keep in line with the topic in terms of mentally, because I mean the physical stuff is the easiest stuff. Like we know, we enjoy that, right? As athletes, we enjoy that. The difficult part is actually the mental side, the side where you've constantly got to motivate yourself each and every day. And I read something recently from Arsene Wenger, the Arsenal coach. Reluctantly read it from him. He's got his documentary out. I'm a Chelsea fan, but there when you
Getting awkward.
yeah, it's awkward, but again, like you got to appreciate when greatness speaks, and he brought a lot to the Premier League. But this quote just really stood out to me, and it was something that I could relate to. He looked for people or athletes that had the stamina of motivation over the intensity of motivation, and I felt that, because anytime you go to the top of the mountain, there's only one way you can go next, and that's down. And it's almost like peaking. Like, I mean, peaking for a fight, I could over peak mentally, and sometimes I would have to be too intensely motivated. Whether I've watched a Mike Tyson video before, and I'm like, okay, I've got to run like 5 a.m. in the morning, like Rocky. Or I've just got to be so focused, I shut out everyone from the world. And what I've learned over specifically this period here during the COVID period, so this is falling in line with the second question, it's about the stamina of motivation. You can merely outlast people outlast your competition by just continuously keep honing on your craft, and then you select when you want to peak, and you select when you want to intensify that motivation. And that was a really important lesson to me, because I noticed it around with people around me as well, that would be so intensely motivated and then they fall off the cliff and they just wasn't able to get themselves back. And I've felt it myself when I've been so intensely motivated, and when you hit that plateau, it's hard to get back up that mountain. So for me, it was that was the biggest sort of, both in line with the question about preparation and sorry, I forgot the second question, but I know it ties in.
My brother, you know what? I'm marveling not just at your wisdom, but your mindset in terms of how you express yourself. Because I'm really happy when we talked about Mike Tyson earlier, that he was very much kind of pigeonholed as almost like a fighting machine. But we've seen his evolution to become a philosopher, you know, a philanthropist, and somebody who expresses vulnerability. But you at 28, King, I can only salute you, because there's so many pearls of wisdom that I'm taking from this conversation. So yeah, you're on the one for me, bro.
No, but yeah, that's how it followed into the second question about getting through COVID, because yeah, it was extremely frustrating through that. But one, I had to count my blessings and appreciate where I was from. But again, like, just hone that motivation to just stay in the game, keep that stamina of motivation to keep on going. And it doesn't have to be at the top of the mountain. You just got to keep going through it and keep being proud of where you're going and where you've came from.
Brilliant. And I want family, keep the conversation going in the chat. Keep linking with each other, because all of us are in this together. And I really want people to just hold on to that gem. I don't mind. I don't care whether you're a young person in this conversation looking at the journey ahead, or you're a big person reflecting on life. You know, this idea of sustained growth, of having a long-term vision, it changes everything, because we live in a culture of immediacy, where people are trying to see how many likes, how popular they are, what's popping today. But that's a big key you dropped there, brother. Appreciate that.
Exactly that.
Ooh. So Stefan, if you can bring into the conversation, we're talking about these life journeys and sustaining yourselves. Can you tell us a bit about the beginnings of your journey of mindfulness? I know you were raised in Hackney, so it's a place of gentrification now, but a place of raw reality and realness from the times that you was coming up in the area. So talk to us.
It probably still is in its pockets. The gentrification, it's like two worlds, tales of two cities. So the people that were there before are still there, and they have to deal with the reality that it's impoverished. So they were never able to buy business and properties. So they're looking at this place and they feel like they no longer belong there, which is a real reality check in terms of when people have nothing and people come in with something and they take everything. And it's not just happening in Hackney, it's happening in several places, several areas across London, and probably a lot of cities across the world. Paris being another example, loads of cities in the US, you know, places like Brooklyn, where we've been living there for a long time, but people that can come in and essentially just buy up or take over, and you're just left with crumbs. So I'm born and bred in Hackney, and my mindfulness journey probably started about 11, 12 years ago. I've been practicing yoga for a good while, and through practicing yoga, I learned that, you know, it wasn't just about the stretching, it was more about what my body needed. So I kind of became aware of what parts of my body were tight, and then I would use yoga to kind of release all the stress. And then I started to get into the meditative side of it. And then I went on a couple of courses, couple of schools that I worked at sent me on a course for my own self-practice. So I did like an 8-week beginner's course. And then after that, I had to do like 70 hours of self-practice. And then I went on a secondary course for teaching mindfulness. And from there, I've just upskilled. And I've been able to go into learning centers and be able to deliver mindfulness in a way that kids can kind of understand. So you've got to be able to talk like them, look like them, walk like them. Well, I don't walk like them, they walk like me. That's the first thing I say. I don't talk like you talk like me.
Wow.
You know, and it's a thing where I've been working with kids for about 20 years. So for me, it was adding to something that I was already doing. So it's a thing where it's about forming relationships, and from forming the relationships, you can then build the learning, which a lot of teachers struggle to do because they're dealing with classroom management.
Yeah.
And that's the issue in our schools: the classroom management, the lessons being stopped and started, dealing with kids' behaviour because the home is no longer the place where the kids are coming from. So the schools are dealing with all the fallout from the homes being very difficult places where kids are being raised because of the breakdown in the families. And you've got the superstructure in school. So our kids are struggling with lack of structure at home and then going to places where there's too much structure. So it's really finding a balance. So
wow.
I don't just go into schools. We work on mindfulness. You know, we work on self-regulation, self-reflection, building resilience, looking how they're listening, improving their listening skills, so they're able to not just function in school. We're trying to give them life skills, you know, things that they can use for the rest of their life. You know, if you know how resilience works, you know, it's something that you have to go through. But there are still things you can learn from other people's stories. You know, you don't have to make the same mistakes, you know, because you have a reference. And I think a lot of us growing up in London, even though we were surrounded by our parents, a lot of the time they weren't able to sit down and impart their knowledge because they were just surviving. You know, me and my friends, a lot of our mums and dads were surviving because they were dealing with the intersections of all the difficulties of being in the UK and not having anything. So having to take things and work for them, working twice as hard, getting paid half as less, and still being told to be grateful after being invited here. So, you know, my grandparents, all of them came here on invitations, and they didn't have to be grateful because nobody gave them anything. They worked for everything that they had, yeah, and they paid their taxes, they paid their national insurance, and they still got nothing, you know. So as my friend said, we are built on the backs of greatness, and all I'm trying to do when I work with young people is to bridge, because a lot of them don't have the bridge where when they see an elder, they don't even know how to communicate with us because they don't have any references in their family. So for me, it's about building a bridge to them so they can come and walk over to me and see what's happening on my side, you know, as an elder. Because I am an OG. I consider myself an OG. I'm not young. I'm not trying to be young. But they know that when I walk into a classroom, there's a certain level of respect that I command because that's the culture that I come from. And that's the culture that most of us come from. And I remind them of that every time I see them. You know, when we see each other, we greet ourselves with like morning, afternoon, evening. I don't mind which one you want to choose, as long as we greet each other with respect. That's how we start our lessons.
Listen, I could sit and just give you the square, my brother. You have spoken so eloquently and so passionately.
Thank you.
Things that matter to all of us in this conversation. I can feel the energy in the chat. People feel so grateful to be here. And I think Josh as well, I think Stephen's touched on a lot of things we were talking about, the education system, the pressures that parents are on. And I think the whole thing of fight or flight is quite powerful. Your mum arriving at the age of 19, trying to reconnect with the family and integrate into school and the culture. And these classrooms where we've got 30 students all vying for attention on one teacher, there's so much pressure on educators and young people in those situations.
No.
Indeed.
Oh, no.
So, Josh.
No, please. you, Stefan, I mean, I'm just in awe. So please, like, let the OG always goes first.
Yeah, I'm happy to be called uncle. I'm happy to be called an OG because that's what I am.
Yeah.
I think that when we start to reconnect with the younger generations, we'll see a difference in how they interact with us. You know, there's been a disconnect for too long. A lot of older people feel like the younger people don't know what's happening in the world. You know, black people, people of color are not allowed to make mistakes. You know, yeah, and we're not allowed to be mediocre. We always have to be extraordinary, which is so difficult. You know, our kids need to learn how to make mistakes, and we need to help them in the lesson of, like, what did you learn on reflection? What did you learn from that? You know, because if you think about your 21-year-old self, yeah, think about all the reckless things that you did.
I'm just glad that they didn't have Snapchat,
throughout your
Instagram, all
20s.
these things back then. Trust me.
Throughout your teenage years, all the reckless behavior that you display. And I wasn't saying you had to be on road or anything, but you were just doing a lot of silly things. Yeah? We need to have honest conversations with our young people. Yeah. And I think when they hear our stories, you know, it's like, yeah, you are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to slip up as long as you can get back up. Yeah. And be able to be a functioning member of your community. And that's what we want. We want functioning members of our community where they've learned and then they can impart that same knowledge to the next generation and a generation after that. Not enough people want to nurture young people. How do we expect them to grow if we're not watering them?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I want to shout out to Daniel. He wanted to join the conversation. Daniel, we're going to open the square up in a minute. So please, if you still want to join us, hang tight. Anyone else who wants to join, you're most welcome. Thank you to Infinite Wellness for following. Follow us. Follow all the kings in the square.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, go true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big up Love in the Room. Yeah, Marva Cody. Yeah, it's important. It's really, really important. And it's not about monetizing. It's the money comes if the money comes, but it's really about finding your passion. And it's taken me a while. It's taken me many, many years to really find something that I enjoy. You know, when I teach mindfulness, you know, I hope people can hear my passion, because it's not just about just going in and doing breath work. It's about changing these, you know, opening up these young people's minds, you know, making them feel like they can question, yeah, and not even agree with what's happening with the status quo. It's about changing the status quo. We want young people to be able to go out there, as Tupac said, because they're young and they're energized, they have the energy to go out there and fight. You know, I can be in the war council, you know, we can sit down and we can delegate, but they have that energy. And, you know, that fire burning within them is what young people are about. It diminishes over time when you think about, you know, my fathers and my grandfather, how they were when they were young and how they are now. It's like that fire, it gets less because you're just tired. Yeah. You're tired of having those same conversations. You're tired of someone, you know, looking over their shoulder, you know, at the cash point. You're tired of when people, you know, touch your hair. You're tired when you have to make yourself smaller. You get tired, you know. Yeah. It's tiring because it's an everyday thing.
And I feel you, because we have the potential. Like, all energy is cyclical, you know, it goes around. And if we can build that structure, that village structure, where you've got the youngers who have the energy seeking guidance, the ones in the middle working super hard, the grandparents who have the wisdom to pass down, and the ancestors that school us all, you know, we have a chance at making our community a great one that can contribute what we know it can. But I'm wondering, as an OG, I love your OG status. I love the way you own it. And I think a lot of the time when people used to talk about the OGs, it was always the gangster side of OG, but it could be standing for greatness. Yeah. You know? So how do you build those relationships in institutions, schools, youth spaces, where you can come in and change the mindset? Because I saw a young man in Brixton. I was coming out the library and he was just sitting on the steps. I said, "Yeah, respect King." And he scowled at me. He goes, "What do you mean, King? What are you calling me King for?" And I was like, we need to have a conversation, you know? So talk to us. How do you build these bridges?
That's more about bravado, because at that age, I read a book recently, Who There Was, by Gabriel I forgot his name, and it really speaks about the small, the nuances of like growing up in certain parts of the country, and when you're just going about your daily business as a young man or young woman, but you have to deal with, like, I call it the Serengeti, where you've just got alpha animals just feeding off other alpha animals, and you're kind of caught up in like just maneuvering. They're going to school, they're going to the youth club, they're going to play a sport, and they just have to look tough just to get by. It's almost like they're in a war zone,
Yeah.
But even if they look weak, that's it. Someone's going to look to do them something.
This is it.
And I can't, and we all had to do that. It must be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It must be exhausting having to just look like you're tough, And I think that if we start to develop our young people's emotional intelligence, where you can say to a young man, why do you think I called you a king? Yeah. And you start to have a conversation about our history. And it isn't just like going back 400 years. You just give them a context, like, those trainers that you were wearing, do you know who made those, or who brought them to the public arena? Or just little things that they can connect with. Kids love trainers. They love trainers. If we get, I tell stories about music. I tell stories about trainers, how we were growing up and we used to wear these certain type of trainers with certain type of trousers, and that's what you're doing now. So all African history is a history where it's recycled. So what you're doing now was done 20 years ago. What our parents were doing, our grandparents were doing. We've always recycled our culture. And it's that generation will take on that mantle, and I think it's important that we connect with the past, the future, and the present, so they feel that they're part of a much bigger picture, because our young kings or queens, if they knew their greatness, if they really knew their greatness, they'd be unstoppable. But they're dealing with so many intersections that they can't even see the wood from the trees. So it's really about empowering them, and that takes time, because you're basically breaking down the fact that at home there's no expectations of you doing well at school, but I expect you to do well in my class. I expect you to do well because that's my expectations of you, and maybe you're not getting that at home, but in here that's my expectation. And then you see it from other people in the community where they're holding these young people high, and they begin to start believing in themselves because they've never had that at home, unfortunately. Doing well at school isn't something that some of us really, really value. Education opens doors, even on its most basic level. So if you can get through 11 years of school, it means that you don't have to do a job where someone's telling you something. You can become an entrepreneur. You can do an apprenticeship. You can go and work. You can go and work for yourself. But you still have to do those 11 years of school. So it's really about, I think we do well when we tell a story. You tell a story to a black child, it's better than anything else. What's the story? What happens at the end? This is what's going to happen at the end if you really think about what you want to do with your life. That's the story. And they connect with that. I don't know why they love stories, but they seem to get more out of stories than anything else that I teach.
You know what, King? Wherever they took us from, whatever happened to us, they couldn't take our stories. That's what traveled with us. And I think there is, we are the original story. When we call the show Black Love Stories, the thing that we were meditating on was that the original love story, the first man to fall in love with a woman, the first woman to fall in love with a man, was people who were melanated. We are the original love story. And if we can get that love connection, we have something to teach the world, something to share with the world. So this is really the essence of why we do this show, my brother. And it's been spiritual. I want people in the chat to testify to this, because these words are healing words.
It's been insightful for me to hear from Stefan, because I couldn't necessarily say I had the same experience, but I can very much relate to what he is saying from the way he articulated it, and it makes like total sense. And I can't again say I relate exactly to experience, because my upbringing was again like but trying to validate myself. And like what you're saying, Stefan, is if you can get your self-worth and understand that you have self-worth in the spectrum that you're in, then you're going to see yourself in a different light. And if you like, for one, how can you expect to respect others if you can't respect oneself? And
Yeah.
that's such top line, like where what some of the messaging that I got out of what you're saying, which I can definitely relate to.
Yeah, it starts with respecting them, because they don't understand the respect thing because they've never been taught it. So it's really about giving them the opportunity to learn how we respect one another, and through that, it's like, and it just starts with a good morning.
Mm-hmm.
You come into the space, we say good morning to each other. If you don't, you go back outside and you come back in,
So
and then you go back.
my coach, he's Jamaican, and he like the same in the gym, like that, like he instilled that, and that's the philosophy. Like we box out of Bad Boys Boxing Gym, that's Aaron McDonald's gym, but it doesn't matter whether you're a professional, like one of the professionals, or you're first coming through the gym. You have to go around and shake hands or spud every single person in that gym, every single person without fail. And if you don't, you get called out on it. You say, like, no, you go and say hi and bye to everybody. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's really important. I feel it's really important, and then it starts with how we then talk to them,
That's one thing I noticed.
We're not talking at them.
Sorry. One thing I always notice when I go back to the island, St Vincent, is every more like if I was walking down London. Funny enough, I was walking through Brixton today, and I couldn't even imagine me saying good morning or good afternoon to somebody. But walking like on the island, it doesn't matter who you pass. Good morning, good evening, hi ma'am, hi sir, and it's instilled. And if I didn't, I would feel like I was being
Weird.
You become the outsider almost by choice, because you're not responding to that love,
Exactly.
and you can just lean into that. Whereas if we're in a difficult place here, if you say, it's almost a form of antagonizing another young person. If you go, hey, good morning, and smile, they kind of caught off guard because they have to lose the screw face, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, safe. Because we're so ready, as Stefan was saying, we're ready for war because we're so exhausted of having the hard armor on. And I love something that Stefan was saying about painting this picture of seeing people, seeing our parents and grandparents who worked 2-3 jobs for real. Like my mom, I always tell her my mission, my vision, my drive, but I sometimes have to pause and go, hang on a minute. When I was little, she had to take me to her second job and rest me up somewhere while she was there working in an old people's home, and then go into work for the NHS. And she went through all of that with nobody to tell. And I get to tell her my stories of my dreams. And I'm like, pause, see her and be grateful that she wants to hear your story, and maybe pause and listen to hers. And these young kings you're talking about, and queens as well, who feel unseen. I'm going back to Josh and your vision of wanting to be that boxer, and in your mindset's right, but you still haven't quite won the favor of your mum yet, and you have to go into the world to prove yourself and come back and bring that joy back. What was it like for your mum to realize that you were on that quest and you were on your way?
And I think the term like violence or fighting for any parent must be difficult, especially for a mother to conceptualize. Especially like when I was growing up, I would often get into scuffles and so now going into an environment where someone's actually trained to physically harm her son, it was very difficult. I think for me, it was just trying to prove that I was good enough and like I could protect myself, and I was good enough to be in the sport. And for me, that's where it became serious. It was like I couldn't dilly dally in sport. Like you can play football, but you don't play boxing. And so for mum, it was very hard. But now she realised that I'm fairly good and I don't get hit all too much. Still managed to keep a pretty face, and so now she's come around to it. And I think it's really helped that obviously she lives back in the island, and sort of the island got behind me as well, and it gives her that sense of pride, and that makes me proud, and that gives me that lift. And sometimes I have to control myself, because when I saw the post that the High Commission put out the other day, again, when I go back to the intensity of motivation, I almost just got on my bike and started
Yeah.
on a hike, and it was just like, no, level yourself out, like
Manage the energy.
too high, don't get too high on the highs, and don't get too low on the lows. Just keep going through, keep on your course. And again, like, that's just what I would say to anybody. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's what I believe.
Beautiful. You can tell we're on a this is the Vincey special, man. It's a rare day I get to indulge in a conversation about the island where my father's from. So I'm just wondering, Stefan, your family roots and how you draw on that.
It's quite funny that you're talking about St. Vincent. My grandfather was a Vincentian.
Oh, wow.
So my mum is half Vincentian, half Montserratian. So even though he didn't play like, I never knew him, and my mum knew him up until like 5 years old, it's in my DNA. It's in my children's DNA, and at some point I'll be looking to explore going home to basically seek, just kind of find out where my roots are in terms of St. Vincent. You know, I think my great grandmother was a Carib Vincentian, funny enough. So I like that history, like that physical history, the DNA, knowing where you're from. I've done a DNA test, you know, I know most of the ethnic groups in West Africa that I'm from. So I feel these things are important to me. It's just connecting the dots physically, and being in the place where my ancestors once walked is probably another reason why I definitely want to go back.
Beautiful. You know what? We need to get that funding together, man. Do a little BMT special, all three of us. Yeah, I mean, come back to the island, man. Just tell the story, tell the stories.
What I'm going to drop here right now is next May, when I'm going out there. If any get out, and I want to say it on the channel now, we're going to be raising funds, because I'm going to be running a summer school, a boxing summer school, over a 6-week period for kids out there, just to give them a form of release, a potential, a new avenue that they can explore, because boxing isn't it's not well funded out in the island, and they haven't got a lot of resource. So currently working with the High Commission and working with funding bodies and gyms here in the UK to get resources like pads, punch bags, boxing gloves out to the island for May, where we're beginning running that summer school. So anyone that wants to get out and wants to help and wants to also see the island, well, just hit me up.
Well, bro, we're in it. Whatever we can do to help. The family's active, so understand Blacklove Stories family, BMT Stories family. Follow these kings. Get involved in the conversation. Support their work. Support their fights. Support the things they believe in, and share your stories as well. So I just want to get into a real quick question. But before I do, anyone who wants to now jump into the conversation, we're going to open the square for the last 10 minutes or so. Just jump in, join us, and have a little chat about whatever's on your mind from today's conversation. I just want to just touch on intergenerational trauma and just what your thoughts are, Stefan, on what we carry ancestrally, and if that's the thing which you relate to.
Very much. I've just come off a 2-day, I did a mental health first aid course with Mind in Haringey. So big up Lynette Charles, who was the facilitator. So it was intense, you know. Monday and Tuesday night, I literally wanted to come home and sleep, because mentally I absorbed so much. And because it was for Black, Asian and mixed race minorities training, in Haringey especially, we were looking at the PSTD model that a lot of us have, a lot of our young people are growing up, and a lot of us have grown up in homes that were very dysfunctional. And we've ended up only now starting to address the mental health crisis in our community. We're only now just having the conversations around it. And that's not even talking about the stuff that happened before the Windrush came, the trauma of like 400 years. Just to say this, stress can affect you on a cellular level. And stress can be passed down from mother to baby. Yeah, so not only are we dealing with all the difficulties of living in Europe, we're also dealing with our most recent past of kidnapping, rape, being worked to death. Because obviously in the Caribbean, the reasons why we still have a tighter relationship with Africa, because they brought in more enslaved Africans, yeah, and to keep the plantation economy going, they brought in more and more and more enslaved Africans, more than America, and that's a fact. America, the Caribbean and Brazil imported more enslaved Africans than North America ever did. So we're dealing with all of those things. What I would like, there's hope, and if people start to address their own stuff, yeah, whether it's a conversation with your siblings or your cousins or even with your parents about things you want to leave in the past. Yeah. And the things that you want to bring forward. Now, I use my own example. We all used to get beat as kids. Yeah. Some quite badly. You know, those things I feel we didn't do before we were enslaved. I don't think we disciplined our kids that way. It became so normalized that when you still talk to people of color, just a little slap won't do them anything. Where you're thinking, what is the purpose of physically beating your child? And how has it become so normalized in our community that even when we talk about it, it's still done with a bit like, you know, there's no problem beating children. Yeah. You shouldn't have to put your hand on anybody. Yeah. More or less your children when you think about it. If you can't communicate with your children, then there's something definitely wrong. Yeah. So a lot of us now are not doing that. You know, we've learned that that's culturally, that isn't something that we should be doing.
You know what, fascinating, just to touch on what you're saying, I do want you to continue the narrative here, that we're struggling to make a distinction between our most recent history of enslavement and our traditions. And this idea that because your parents and your grandparents did it, it's tradition. No, there was a point when there was an overseer who would beat you to correct you and discipline you. And when you come out of slavery, your only memories are of that form of discipline. And it's us being able to leap backwards to find how love and other forms of discipline can correct. And the same with the food. When we're craving certain foods, and we're talking about that cellular level, these foods were the offcuts, the things that we were forced to eat to survive. But now we have choice. We need to reframe our thinking to look for other foods that are healthy for us. So King, continue, but I love this conversation.
Yeah, to be fair, like, I mean, that's some Uncle OG, some real like gems drop, because I didn't ever think of it like that. And we were like joking about before you came on, Stephen, about like the beatings that we got. But never once cats got stolen. Never once.
Yeah, my daughter's trying to sabotage the IG. You want to come in? Okay, get lost there.
But really thinking about, because I thought when I have kids, I've got to discipline them the hard way because that's how I grew up. But up until this conversation just now, I've never thought about it any more deeper. And when you really do think about it, and when you conceptualize it how you have, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't ever tell your kid or your child when they grew up and become a member of society or maybe a manager of say Costa Coffee to slap their employee to do one. So so I mean, and I just thank you for that one, because
beautiful.
I probably would have carried on a tradition.
Yeah, it's just good to take a step back from our behaviors, especially in the family. You know, that mental health 2-day course really opened up my eyes to the stigma of the mental health in our community, and a lot of our people that go through bipolar and psychosis and all the other things, anxiety, and we just laugh it off or we dismiss it, like it's nothing. These people, this is their day-to-day struggle that we're invalidating, and we're not seeking the right help, we're not policing the mental health system, so we don't want to take antidepressants or whatever it is, but we haven't even done the research.
Okay.
If you do the research and you can see, if I do this, take this, and it's not going to be good for me, that's one thing, but at least do the research, find out what exactly is happening in these places. We don't know what happens in these mental institutions, but I'm not sending my young person there, or I'm not going to seek the help. I'll rather a pastor come in and, they could be bipolar and try and lock them up for 6 months. And by the time the medical services come in, the crisis team, they're already 3/4 down the line. They have to be sectioned because they're so far gone. So we need to learn how to, we pay our taxes, we should be part of we should police it. We should find out what's going on. We should hold them to account. We can't just be doing the same things over and over again generationally, The beating of the kids is one thing. How we talk to our kids, how we communicate with our kids, how we value education, how maybe we didn't do the things that we needed to do, and our kids are starting off at -10. We need to empower them. So I didn't make it, but it doesn't mean you can't. Because we're living in communities that, this whole structural racism thing, we're doing all the work for the system. The amount of black parents I have to deal with when I say, your child is really bright, I need you to support them. Please. I just need you to support them. And if you support them, you'll see a difference in their day-to-day schooling, because we're doing it here and they're going home and they're not getting any love.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Josh was saying about our pursuit of approval. We're going to find it in the sports hall. We're going to find it in the streets. If we can find it at home, if we can find it within our talents, we're going to commit to that with more passion. Because I love what Josh was saying about innately knowing this is what you wanted to do, because you went through the difficulties and you picked yourself back up because you had a drive to do it. And we need our young people to connect with that drive and the parents to facilitate that, King. So big love for that.
Indeed.
I'm interested, Josh, in your sports science journey and how, we're talking about food and about health and how what you've learned through your studies has impacted on how you live your life and how you train.
This is where I probably get a little bit controversial, because not everything, a lot of what I've taught, I probably or learn, I probably go back on quite a bit. So through sports science, you're taught a lot about, for optimal performance, say you have to have milk type proteins or plant-based proteins for growth, for recovery. One of the pieces of research that I done was actually or was included with was actually on how milk can be used as an optimal hydration drink, because it's got sugars and minerals. However, now my mindset is completely different. It's almost I never say I'm vegan, but I predominantly follow a plant-based diet. And the Game Changers documentary on Netflix, that helped. But prior to that, I was slowly cutting down to see how, like, not eliminating, but reducing my dairy to the point where now I only drink oat or a plant-based milk, to find out how it actually works. And for me, and whether it be a scientific or pseudo placebo, for me, I just feel a lot more clearer. And this is where the science does come in. Like, if you're spending a lot of time digesting, like your brain utilizes a whole load of energy, and it's one of the like your energy system is used. Your brain is utilizing a whole load of energy to function. Now, if your digestive system is taking some of that battery, well, that's not going to your brain. So how are you going to cognitively operate optimally if your digestive system is using that? So same as an athlete. If I go to train in the morning and I'm having a steak afterwards, and then I've got training at 2 o'clock. Well, my training at 2 o'clock, my muscles aren't going to be primed because my digestive system is using the energy that my muscles would be using to operate. So in order for, and I felt a lot clearer. So sleeping, like, so when we talk about stress, and stress is a huge player, like, and sleep can actually really help with eliminating stress and anxiety. And if you can have a clearer and good, I used to suffer from insomnia, but when I started going to more of a plant-based diet, again, I'm not claiming that it's totally down to this, but for me, like, the social side, like the sports science side of it, was predominantly funded by multi-million-pound corporations like Lucozade, like Outpro.
Who's funding our education? What is the conclusion they want us to reach at the end of the studies, for real?
When I looked at a lot of the research that I was doing, and I really looked at how this research was funded and the direction that you're pushed to going with an answer, for me, it wasn't as strong science as what is portrayed. And so a lot of my now sort of dietary, how do I say this, my dietary traits or idiosyncrasy is just based upon my own opinion, how I found my body to feel after trying a diet, whether it be intermittent fasting, whether it be just sort of predominantly following a plant-based diet, hydration, juicing, that all of that stuff is all interlinked, because you can't have clearness of mind if you're treating your body like crap.
My brother, this is so beautiful, because the most powerful thing for me in this conversation is we're all seeking knowledge of self and being prepared to share the whole journey with our audience. And by no means is anyone saying what you should do. We're saying what we have done.
Yeah,
and that seems such an important message of leadership. It isn't always about us saying, I've done all the work, so this is the answer. No, each person has to do the work. And there's a guy called Leon Marshall and Vanika Marshall who run Hidden Science Academy. And I did their health course. And what I found phenomenal was I started to look at food in like different dimensions. I'm looking at ingredients, and the order of what's in a product tells you the quantity of what is in the product.
Sugar first.
Things like that, realizing that little sip of tea when my stomach turned a little bit, it's because I may be lactose intolerant. So take it out of the diet, see how you feel, make notes about yourself. You have to be the #1 student of your own life, of your own body. And, it's powerful, bro. I love everything that you dropped so far. So what I'm going to do...
I'm just going to warn, I'm on 2%. I've been holding in. I didn't think we'd go on this long, but I've been...
Neither did I, but we're making it up for everyone who's been riding with us. It's the Blacklove Stories, BMT, the extended edition. We started late, we ended great. I just want to make sure that before we wrap, this has to be only part 1. Because I want to get both of you brothers, not just in the square, but in a physical space, we can conduct a bigger conversation and maybe show some exhibition of skills, deeper insights, and we'll make it great, man. Yeah. So before we bounce, can I get some tips? I'm going to go first to Josh, because I know you might just disappear like that in a second.
Okay.
Next fight, and what we can do to support you in all the work you're doing going forward, because we're here for you, King.
Okay, tips. Quote Nelson Mandela from... Actually, it's not Nelson Mandela. This is the poem that Nelson Mandela would read when he was in jail, the Invictus poem. And it's out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. But under the bludgeonings of fate, my head is bloodied, but remains unbowed. It matters not how straight the gate, nor how tarred the punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That's tip. You are the captain of your soul. Next fight, God willing, December 11th. Nothing's been official, been announced, but we're hoping to be out December 11th, possibly in Bedfordshire. So yeah, we're going, we're ready. If not, 2020 you. No pressure, no diamonds.
Brother, you're an absolute blessing to us. You're an absolute treasure to St. Vincent, the UK, and everyone in the chat, man.
No.
Stay shining, true Diamond King. And this is just the beginning of our journey.
Honor.
I look forward to
Honor.
working more closely with you for sure, my bro.
Every time. It's been an honor and pleasure to meet you as well, Stefan.
Yes, Josh. We'll talk soon anyway. I'll be in touch.
100%. Right. I'm gonna dip out just in case.
All right, King. Travel safe, man. We speak soon, yeah? Blessings.
Thank you.
Yes. So Stefan, we're gonna get you to bring us home. You've raised so many interesting thoughts. Got a lot of people curious to go on journeys of learning. But I think there's a lot of, for me as well, I think there's a lot of emotional charge from the things we've talked about our youth, about the challenge of our elders. So if we're seeking to get some kind of well-being tonight, what would be the 3 simple tips you would give so we could begin that journey of inner peace? And
journey to self-regulate. So I'd like to big up Anya, who did some mindfulness with me, and my Cody Ross Brooksy, original Adidas pioneer. You can start very simply by sitting in silence for a couple of minutes before you get out of your bed and before you sleep at night. Just sit in silence for 3-4 minutes. And as you get used to that, extend the amount of time. And what that does, it gives your nervous system a break. Yeah, because it never gets to break. Yeah, your nervous system is always working. When it gets to rest is when you're not thinking. Obviously you think, but you're just managing your emotions. You're just sitting there and you're regulating your heartbeat and you're regulating your thoughts. And that way you can have a better night's sleep and start your day just by decluttering your mind. Another simple exercise is put on your favorite piece of music on any given day and just write what comes into your head. It's called a decluttering the mind exercise. So I'll give you an example. I did this with some elders now, and I put on some Dennis Brown tunes. And if you saw what music does to us, yeah, if you saw what they were writing about when they were getting ready to rave, the type of places they went to, the type of clothing they wore, but the change in their body language, it brought them to a place of like happiness. So what the exercise does is put on your favorite piece of music, just write, it's called a stream of consciousness, for about 2 minutes, and then look at what you've written. And what that will do is it will declutter your mind. It will get you ready for the day. Or you can do that on the move. So if you're sitting down on a bus or tube, you can put your headphones in and just write. And you can also use apps where you can listen to guided meditations, or you can listen to frequency sounds, So I fall asleep to the sounds of the ocean, or rainfall, natural sounds, or crickets, whatever, go out there and see what works for you. Or you can listen to the frequency, the 808 sound, the sound of the original, that every single person of color knows that Bluetooth. We can all connect with that 808 sound, yeah? And that's what we kind of need to go back to, because our needs are more niche, our needs are more like, we need to tap into the things that make us feel good, and we are the original people. So this isn't something that is new to us. We put it out there. And obviously, yoga and meditation were cultivated in South Asia, but I believe it might have started in the northeastern part of Africa and then transported everywhere. Or it started in different places. It all depends on your perspective. These little moments of the day where you take a mind break will give you a better night's sleep. It will also regulate yourself.
That's great.
Wherever you are. It's a journey, but it's a much needed journey, because stress affects Black people far worse than any other group on the planet. If you imagine, I'm going to be very quick. If a glass smashed and there's been tests done on us, the ways white people react to stress is very different to the ways black people do. Our cortisol levels were 4 times higher. Why? Just from our reaction to a glass smashing. So that tells you stress shortens our lifespan up to 5 to 10 years if we're not careful. Yeah, so I do all in my power to make sure that I will see my grandkids or be a productive part of my grandkids' life by staying in touch with myself and trying to extend my life. Yeah, so I don't allow people to try and stress me out. I remove myself from it because I know that it's going to affect me adversely. You know,
I love that.
I need to do other things, but I know that I regulate myself every single day of my life. Yeah, and that's why I go out there and start with the young people. We move up. We've got elders that know how to regulate, you know, and I tell them, we want you around, yeah, because once you go, we will lose a lot of the knowledge. We take it for granted now, you know. I've lost close people. What they have is gone, you know.
I love, bruv, just nothing but love from me.
Yes, sir.
The BMT, BWT community. I will work with you to get you in a space where we can deepen this conversation. Before we let you
No
go,
problem, bro.
could you tell us, or perhaps share with us, one exercise we can do together? Because I saw around you had a couple of things with the hands and breathing.
Yeah, so I usually start with the finger breathing exercise. I was in class, year 6 class, Enfield Heights Academy, and what I start with them is that we do a finger breathing exercise. So all you do is when you breathe in, you go up the finger, and when you breathe out, you go down the fingers, and then you just trace your finger up until. So I'm going to do it very quickly, and then we're going to go back. Yeah. So what I want you to think about is extending your exhale. Yeah. So if your inhale is for 2 seconds, I would like you to think about extending your exhale to 4 seconds. And the exhale is really important because you breathe out the toxins in your body. Yeah, and you also stimulate the vagus nerves, which is a nerve from your brain to your stomach. And if you stimulate that, that really helps you regulate. So thank you to Exhale Health on that one.
Right, family, wherever you are, get involved. Unless you're driving, you can.
Yeah, we don't want you to crash.
All right.
So I'm going to start you off. So you're going to breathe in.
Okay.
Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now we're going to go back. Breathe in. Breathe out. 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 No, I just want you to breathe normally. So I love the way you closed your eyes. Introspection, using parts of your body to look inwardly. And if you practice that, you will find that in moments of difficulty, your body will say, you need to finger breathe because this person is jarring me and I need to center myself.
I could have done with that earlier in the week. Trust me.
Yeah, we need it. There's nothing more empowering, and Neil from Lavender Rooms Fires, there's nothing more empowering being able to take control of yourself physically and mentally. No one can come in and mess that up.
I love that.
Nobody.
Love that. And shouts out to Neil, man. I've watched his journey opening the Lavender Room, and we both know each other from a music industry that was at times too toxic, too competitive, and highly damaging. And I admire everyone who's come from that creative journey to keep sharing what we love, the entertainment and the enlightenment. My brother, please
Yes, sir.
plug your platform, let people reach out, let them know who you are.
Okay, so Mind Bubbles, Instagram, mindbubbles.uk, Hip Hop Meditator, Mind Bubbles Twitter, Meta Mind Bubbles, Mind Bubbles Facebook. So anything Mind Bubbles, you will find me on all the platforms, even TikToks for the young people. Them, you know, I've got a TikTok for exercises. There's YouTube, there's everything, but mainly Instagram is the stuff that I put on, that I share what I do, because it isn't exclusive to me. Yeah, meditation and mindfulness is universal. It's for everybody. Yeah, and what we want to do is create a world where people are able to tap in to their greatness and be the best versions of themselves. You know, that's what we want. That's what, for me, mindfulness is.
Love, bring this man to your manor, bring him to your area, get into the conversation. Urban Goddess Evolution is going to get you involved in Got Krush TV, phenomenal platform. They need
no problem.
you. And the rest of family, one of the most powerful things you can do is share. It's as simple as pressing that button. Share this live. We will be saving it. Follow, like posts, comment on posts, amplify the stories that matter to you. Stop commenting on the madness and the all the patter, and start investing life force into the stories that are going to heal our people. Thank you, King. Mindfulness.
Thank you.
Leadership, meditation, gems, OG status, and I believe the beginning of a great conversation we're going to have in person. And just stay safe.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on this platform. I really appreciate the times when people invite me onto their platforms and I'm able to share the stories and the wonderful young people that we're working with, because it isn't just me, it's them. I'm just a facilitator. They're actually doing all the shadow work. And for me, when you do the work that no one sees, you're on the path to greatness.
Jeez. On that note, this is Black Love Stories. Shout out to Josh Gooden. Support him, support Stefan on the fantastic work, and support each other in this community. We're all one, doing greatness, and we need each other. I'm Fusion. I'm here 7 to 8, promise you 7 to 8 every Wednesday, sharing great stories, Black men in conversation. Peaches, Nana, and Eve's Envy will be back on Tuesdays. They do Black woman time conversation, equally powerful, led by the Empresses. Yeah, stay blessed, stay good, family, love, share the message. I'll see you soon. Peace.